Hey everyone, Darcy here. So today's guide we will be talking about EV ownership, what to look out for before making your first purchase of an EV, and whether or not an EV is suitable for you. So I hope you find this helpful, and of course, if you like the content that is coming up on this channel, please do like and subscribe. So before we go into everything else, the first thing to understand is what are your usage patterns what are your driving usage patterns like? Okay, so how often do you drive your car? What is your mileage like? So on a daily or weekly basis, how many kilometers do you drive? Okay, now this helps you determine the range and charge frequency you require, right? So for example, if you know that you drive maybe 100 kilometers a week, then a vehicle that has maybe 3 to 400 kilometers of range is more than enough for you on a weekly basis. However, if on a weekly basis you drive maybe 4 to 500 kilometers, then you're going to have to charge your vehicle in between. And the next thing to look out for is, do you drive your vehicle interstate or is it just city drives? Now, this helps you determine the max range you require. So for example, from point A to point B, are you going to be driving more than 300 kilometers? What is the maximum amount of distance that you have to travel between the states? So this is something that will help you decide the maximum amount of range that you require a vehicle. This helps you immediately filter down into a certain few categories of EVs that you can buy. So the next thing to look out for is charging situation, right? Home and work charging is the best case scenario that one can have. The reason for this is you will spend considerable amount of time frequently at either of these locations most of the time, actually every other day. So for home charging, most likely you will have a 7 to 12 kilowatt charger at home. Now these are fantastic because you get to charge your vehicle overnight. Now for work chargers, they normally would come in two different type of variants, either more than 22 kilowatt or less than 12 kilowatt. Now, if you have faster charging infrastructure at your workplace, it means that you are going to have to move your vehicle once it's fully charged. This is usually between 1 to 3 hours. Now, it is only good etiquette to make sure that you do not hog the EV lot, especially at your workplace or even at any public locations. This is because someone else may need to use a vehicle. So just to sum up, right? Home and work charging is always the best situation that you can have because day to day you are going to charge your vehicle. So even if you have a vehicle with only 200 kilometers of range, if you can charge your vehicle every other day, then as long as your commute is within 200 kilometers, then you're fine, right? At most, you just got to charge a bit more often. So home and work charging is the best case scenario that you can have. Now, when it comes to if you don't have home or work charging, then the next best option is public charging networks, right? So this is I rely solely on public charging. So there are some factors that we have to consider if you use public charging. Now, public charging is dependent on the availability, the number of locations, and the number of chargers available. So the first thing that you should be looking out for is whether or not you have chargers at places where you frequent often. So for example, if you know that on a weekly basis, you are going to location A twice a week, then the one thing to look out for is whether or not this location A has chargers available to you. If there is, then it's pretty much as good as a home and work charging situation. Then the next thing to look out for is what type of chargers do you have at location A? Is it slow charge or is it fast charge? The reason for this is most of the time, if these are places that you frequent for dinner or for the gym, you're only going to spend about 1 to 2 hours on site. And if you have a slow charger, you're not going to get back enough charge for the day, for example. So at the end of the day, you still have to pull into a charger to fill up your vehicle. So the next thing you want to look at is charging infrastructure. What are the charger types available for you in the public charging network? So are they 50 kilowatt chargers? 50 kilowatt chargers take about 1 to 1.5 hours to fill up your vehicle. If they're really fast chargers, more than 120 kilowatts, then you're looking at less than 1 hours of charging time. Now, you should really look out for is what is the most widely available charging speed that you can use. So for example, in Singapore, most of the charging stations that have been deployed are either 22 kilowatt chargers or 50 kilowatt chargers, DC50s. Now, with a DC50, each car that pulls in have to park there for 1 hour to 1.5 hours to get a full charge. So if you want to do like a quick charge, it's not that possible, right? So to give an example, Tesla superchargers are rated for 250 kilowatts. Now, if I pull into the charger, within 10 to 15 minutes, I will be able to get back at least 60% of my battery, and that's really fast, right? I can pull in for 10 minutes and just go, and I have enough to drive for the next 4 days, right? And that's a pretty good speed to have. Now, so generally, if you're dependent on public charging, you will require a vehicle with more range. The more range, the better it is, because the more you have, the less the less frequency you have to charge your vehicle. Now, the next thing to look out for is charging speed. Reality versus theoretical. Now, what do I mean by this? Many manufacturers will claim that they have fast charging times and speeds up to 350 kilowatt. One great example is the Ioniq 5, right? They advertise that the vehicle can charge up to 350 kilowatts at any point of time. But the question you have to ask yourself is, are there infrastructure for this type of charging? So even though the vehicle can charge at 350, do you have chargers out there that allows you to charge up to 350 kilowatt? To my knowledge, right now, at least in Singapore, we don't have any 350 kilowatt chargers. So even if your car can charge 350, where are you going to charge at 350? The fastest public charging network, charging speed available right now is about 120 kilowatts. I think Shell might be deploying some 180 kilowatt chargers. Now, these are great, right? It's fantastic. But having said that, these are limitations. So even if you go down to a dealership or the vehicle brand and you tell them, and they try to sell you that, hey, this vehicle can charge in 10 minutes. The one question that you have to ask them is, where can I charge my vehicle in 10 minutes? So for Teslas, it's great, right? There is a supercharger network. So if they tell you that a vehicle can charge up to 60% in 10 minutes, then you have supercharging available across a country. So this is things that you have to ask. Okay, so number one, the location of fast chargers, where are they? Do you have access to them? Are you going to drive to this location for fast chargers? The next one is the number of fast chargers. How many fast chargers are there at each location? The third one is the price of fast charging. Sometimes certain vendors will charge you more money for faster charging, as it's more expensive to deploy fast charging. Also, the last thing to take note is the maximum charge speed is not achieved throughout the entire charge. So for example, if your vehicle has a 50 kilowatt charger and you pull into a 200 kilowatt charger, does this mean that you're going to charge your vehicle from 0 to 100% in 30 minutes? No, it does not happen that way. So the vehicle will regulate the charge. It will charge the fastest when the battery is empty, and it will slow down as the battery gets full. This is the same like on mobile phones or laptop devices. The reason why this is done is to protect the battery, because as the capacity of your battery fills up, there is more resistance, and when there's more resistance, it generates more heat. So if you're going to keep the charging going at a very high speed, you're going to generate a lot of heat, and in return, you may damage your battery. So I have some asterisks here, mainly because some pointers just in case we're not sure. For slow charging, the estimated time taken to charge is the battery capacity divided by the speed of charge. So if you have a 70 kilowatt vehicle, then if you're charging at a 7 kilowatt charger, you're going to take 70 divided by 7 and you get 10 hours. In theory, that charging your vehicle should take around 10 hours to get full. Now for fast charging, as mentioned, the speed slows down as your battery fills up. So maybe from 0 to 60, it's going to take you 15 minutes, and the rest of the time, it's going to take you another half an hour or 45 minutes to fill up the last 40 to 20% of battery charge. Now we move on to the theoretical range versus the real world range of your vehicle. Now this is when you start to buy your vehicle, when you're shopping for an EV, and then when you see the advertised range. Now this is what we're talking about. Now range is largely affected by battery size and overall efficiency of the vehicle. This is the aerodynamics, the electronics, the motor. How efficient are they at using up the electricity? Now, battery size. Battery size are measured in kilowatt hour. Okay, bigger is not always better. It means if you have a bigger battery, it basically just means that you're carrying around more weight. So for example, the Hummer has more than 200 kilowatt hour of battery, but it can only do around 500 kilometers of range, claimed range, whilst the Model X can do 550 kilometers in range with a 100 kilowatt hour battery. So the same applies to all other vehicles in the market. You have to check what is the efficiency. The reason for this is, now, if you have a 70 kilowatt hour battery that can do 400 kilometers, it means that you have to charge up to 70 kilowatts. You have to charge 70 kilowatts each time just to drive 400 kilometers. Whereas a vehicle that is more efficient, if it only has a 53 kilowatt hour battery, then all you need to do is to charge 50 kilowatts, right? So you're going to spend less time charging to drive the same amount of range. So this is something that you have to consider when you're looking at your vehicle. Now, when we talk about efficiency, so how is it measured? So it's kind of like the same as we do for ICE vehicles. How many kilometers of drive do you get per liter of petrol? So it's the same. So the battery capacity is measured by kilowatt hour. So how many kilometers can you drive per kilowatt? Now, compare your vehicle against other vehicles in its class. And of course, make sure that you're comparing them with the same standards. If a vehicle is rated for 150 watt hour per kilometer, ask the dealership what standard was this tested under. For example, Tesla uses the WLTP range cycle. However, in China, they use a different testing metric and the results are different. So for example, in Singapore, the Tesla may be rated for 430 kilometers, whereas in China, the same vehicle may be rated for 480 kilometers. It is not that the manufacturer is lying, it's just that there are different test methods out there. Same for ICE vehicles. Most of the time, if the published rate is 15 kilometers per liter, you're not going to get it, right? So that is what we call real world range. Now, real world range always deduct 3 to 10% of the mileage from the published numbers. If you see 400 kilometers published, high chance you're not going to get the full 400, you're going to get 360. Then we move on to battery charge limits. This is the one thing that a lot of people may overlook. Now, what are battery charge limits? So in order to protect the battery or certain types of battery, there are recommended charge limits. For example, even your iPhones or Android devices, we have options to choose to allow the handphone to charge up to 85%, not to 100%, because when you do a full 100% charge, you are degrading the battery degrading the battery slightly faster, right? The battery is losing the amount of charge cycles that it can have. So the Polestar 2, for example, the recommended charge limit is 90%. Now, so you have already lost 10% of your battery just because it is not part of the recommended charge limit. Remember, when the manufacturer sells you the vehicle, they are rating the vehicle at the 100% limit, but they're telling you to charge the vehicle to 90%. So you're not going to get 100% of full range. Now, the next thing is charging habits. You will never drive your vehicle to 0%, the same way like you will never use your handphone until it is 0%. You're going to charge your phone by 10 to 20%. So this means that if the charge limit is 90% and you're going to charge your vehicle at 15 or 20%, you're effectively only able to use about 60 to 70% of your battery. Then The last question I ask is safety margin. At 0%, how much battery capacity do you have left? So this is just in case in the event that you accidentally drive to zero, how much range do you have left? So these are things that you have to find out. Now, so what does this all mean, right? So to give you an example, my Tesla has a published range of about 400 to 440 kilometers of range, all right? So 440 in fact. Now, let's just say we'll use 400 as a number, it's easier to work with. Now we minus 5% for inefficiency. Charging patterns, let's just say by the time I hit 15%, I'm going to charge my vehicle and I'm going to charge it to 90%. For my Tesla, it's okay to go 100, but we're just going to assume that most vehicles in the market today are charged to 90%. So the performance value on a Tesla charges to 90%. So the real life charging frequency that you're going to do is for every 280 to 300 kilometers between charges, you're going to have to charge your vehicle. This is 100 kilometers less than what was published, right? So it's significant, and these are things that you have to ask. And if you're wondering how this is calculated, you simply just take 100% minus away inefficiency, minus away your charging patterns, and more or less you have 70% left. So out of the 400 kilometers that is published, you have 70% to work with on a day-to-day basis. Now this is what I call real world range, right? These are things that the manufacturers will not tell you most of the time. So you have to understand this. And if you're buying a vehicle that's rated for 300 kilometers, you're going to be shortchanged, right? You're going to be you're going to be using around 70% of that range only. So you're going to be charging very often. So with this, I hope it helps you with things to look out for before you purchase your EV, or if you're going to purchase an EV, what should you look out for? Now, there are things like the platform of the vehicle or the warranty and servicing. I don't want to cover this because I'm way past the 15 minutes time. So just make sure you know what are the warranty and servicing requirements of your vehicle, and do know that an ICE vehicle is always way more reliable than an EV, mainly because there are so many less moving parts as compared to ICE vehicles. So Tesla has 17 moving parts versus the regular ICE engine that has 2,000 moving parts. So you're going to spend way less time, maintaining your vehicle and sending it for servicing and whatsoever. So I hope this helps. And yes, of course, if you find this helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.